gradual journey into Cabernet Sauvignon magnificence. Welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine, presented by Pick n Pay, and welcome to what used to be my home. This is Parkhurst, the buzzing heartbeat of urban Johannesburg, and 4th Avenue out in front of me is the home of so many of the most popular bars and restaurants that Johannesburg lays claim to, and this one in particular is pretty much on top of that list. Embarc has been all over the awards of late. The last year or two it's been full when you can have full restaurants, and the combination of a really cool layout, some fabulous food and a very cleverly thought out wine list makes it a rather special space. And in fact, I've got that wine list here and I had a flick through it. I had lunch with Michael Fridge on a week or two ago. Lots of wines that you're very happy to find. Some of Lismore's barrel fermented Sauvignon Blanc, a bit of Hope Marguerite Chenin Blanc, a bit of Villefonte if you want to splash a bit of money. It's a fun wine list to look through. It's a fun menu to look through as well, and I'll give you that in a moment. But first of all, I'd like to take you to another place where the hospitality, the food and the wine are terrific, especially the wine, because this is a place in the heart of Stellenbosch where over 130 different wines are available by the glass. It makes the choice almost impossible, but loads and loads of fun. It's the Wine Glass in Stellenbosch, and that's our first visit today. So if you've been following the social media of one Mike Radcliffe, who pretty much runs Stellenbosch now, you will have seen regular mentions over the last little while to a place called the Wine Glass in Stellenbosch. And that is exactly where I find myself today, not just inside the establishment, but with the owner as well. Jacques, lovely to be here. Tell me a little bit about this place.
Thank you, Mike. Well, we have a wine glass in Hermanus, where we started the concept, and we were going to expand to Constantia and Stellenbosch, both very important wine regions. And then COVID came and put the kibosh on that. So now we're getting back on track, and we're very excited about launching in Stellenbosch, and our model being to showcase wines of the region. So we specifically focus here on wines that are produced in Stellenbosch.
It's a proper Aladdin's cave, this. I've been wandering around drooling for about the last hour or so. There's a huge amount of wine. How does the concept work when people come here?
Right, so first and foremost, we're a large restaurant and with a very strong central theme of wine. We represent a number of wine farms that we feel represents the terroir of the area. So we have a spread of wine farms that covers the Stellenbosch region. And we have in total 130 wines, and all these wines on our menu are available by the glass. So you have a vast selection of wines by the glass and across price points too. So you can enjoy a glass of 32 Rand Rosé, or you can have a 500 Rand glass of top-end red. And within that spread, there's something for everyone. But the idea is that wines are accessible so that it's not exclusive. Everybody can find something that relates to their taste and to their price range. And the same goes for our food menu, which is we are most definitely not fine dining. It's more what I refer to as sophisticated bistro. It's easy eating foods, very nicely presented, and the idea is that you can have a different glass of wine with different meals, whether it's a chef's plate or a tapas or a full course.
Speaking of those glasses of wine, 130 of them, how do you manage that process? Because you open a bottle, you've then got another 129 bottles to open if everybody wants something different. How do you work that? How does it make commercial sense for you?
So commercially, it's part of our IP. You know, we have a model that's my background and my partner's background. The business are all financial services, so we spent a lot of time. We have a large wastage factor. We're very strict about the quality of wine. We use a preservation system. On still wines, it's negative to ambient pressure, so it creates a slight vacuum in the bottle. That vacuum is very carefully calibrated. If the vacuum is too strong, you'll start sucking phenols out of the wine. If it's too weak, clearly the oxygen is going to react with the wine. However, when a bottle is opened, we mark the date and time of it being open. And on the second and third day, our sommelier, so the manager of the shop is a qualified sommelier, and he does a test every morning, a sniff test, not necessarily drinking unless he picks up something off, of all these wines. So he checks the quality continuously. And there's a lot of wine that goes to the kitchen. It's part of the model. So it's built into our financial model. That said, most people will find that when they come here, our wines are very well priced. We don't mark up to the normal restaurant margin because we have a large volume of wine to sell. So to get to your question, the chaps who sells us the preservation system will tell us that it'll keep a red wine for 3 weeks or more. Quite frankly, if I have a wine in the bottle more than a week, I have other problems, right? For the very top-end reds, we use Coravin in the bottle. So that's how we manage wastage, but it's still, there is a large wastage factor, yes.
I think I need to get a job here. I can help you with some of that. I asked you a question just before we jumped on camera. I said, right, I would like a glass of wine, and I'd like you to pour yourself a glass of wine, and absolutely anything. Surprise me, but with a reason. You've got 2 glasses poured here from your array. What have you selected?
So 2 of my personal favorites. The one in front of you is a Chenin. It is from Remwoerte. It is called the Honey Bush, and it is one of my favorites because it goes so well with food. It is a fairly heavy Chenin, but not heavy on the wood side. You do pick that up. But I think you'll enjoy that, and it is something that's very well priced. But it, more importantly, comes from a smaller producer. In my glass, I have a Shiraz, which is from the family vineyard selection of Kleine Zalze. Now, Kleine Zalze is one of our wine partners here, and we have 18 of them spread across the terroir, as I mentioned earlier. Kleine Zalze has a deep range. They have a cellar selection, a vineyard selection, and then a family reserve. So they meet all price points. We then fill in a lot of in-betweens with smaller producers who might not have that depth of range, but has quite a few beautiful wines. And we try and match that everywhere. The important thing is that it is very easy to open a wine bar or a wine business or a restaurant like ours and only have top-end wines. But that is the quickest way to the poorhouse, right? Because you will then only appeal to a very small market. So we try and choose across the range. And whether your liking is a Cap Classique, or whether it is a Rosé or a simple Sauvignon, or whether you go into the heavy red side, there should be a spread in each of those varietals of price point. So not just the very expensive stuff, but you should be able to have a 50 Rand glass of red and a very enjoyable red. It's not box wine.
Well, you've sold me on your reasoning. I'm very fond of South African Chenin Blanc at the moment, largely because we make it better than anyone else in the world. Let's see how this one shapes up. Possibly a little psychosomatic, but there's definitely a whisper of honey to that as the name comes through. And it allows me a chance. I haven't had this wine before, so I'm exploring it with you. You've got your glass of red there, and it's exploration that is another big part of the adventure here. I was having a flick through your assorted flights, and I've been to places before that do a flight, maybe 2 flights. You've got loads of them, and there's quite a variety.
Yeah, so our unique selling point, if you want to call it that, is the visitor experience. And all our wines, so as mentioned, we have 130 wines. Every wine is opened by the glass, so you can enjoy a glass instead of investing in the whole bottle, which lowers the risk to try something different. And try different glasses with, different meals or different stages of food, as opposed to being invested in a bottle you now and your partner has to work through. But at the same time, we've taken all those wines and we've divided them into tasting flights. So all our wines are divided into tasting flights of 6. So for example, Cabernet, which is what Stellenbosch is most famous for, premium producing area of Cabernet Sauvignon. We have 3 different flights, each of 6 wines in that flight. The first is an entry-level flight, and this is the kind of wine that you'll be quaffing just around the fire. The second flight
on a Tuesday morning.
On a Tuesday morning, for example. The second flight is then the savoring flight. It's maybe your dinner wine. And your third flight would be your premium, your more pricey wines. And if you decide, I want to do a tasting of Cabernet, you'll decide which price range you want to try. And then when you sit down, we will bring to you all 6, we'll set you up with a placemat, 6 glasses, a set of notes, a pencil, a spittoon, and we'll bring all 6 wines to the table. We'll present them one by one. We tell you a little bit about the farm. So if they have a great place to visit, if they have a worthwhile tasting room or restaurant, etc. We then pour a sample of that wine, which is 30 ml, so it's 2 nice mouthfuls. We will pour all 6, and then you have the opportunity to now do what's referred to commonly as a horizontal wine tasting. It's within the same varietal. It's all current releases. And you can now take your time and maybe come back to a wine. You have a set of notes there, which is the winemaker's note on nose, palate, and finish, and the alcohol content. But you can make up your own mind. And frankly, they ordered according to price. We're agnostic when it comes to quality. We don't say that a more expensive wine is a better wine. It's really what your palate appeals to, or appeals to your palate, rather. Might be the other way around too. So what you would then do is you would select the wine you really like. And if it's the cheapest of the lot, then fantastic. This is a unique experience. The overall experience is unique in South Africa, but where in the world can you taste Stellenbosch premium Cabernets or Bordeaux-style blends or, you know, Chenins, old vines, etc., in one flight and sit and take your time on it? Certainly when you visit a wine farm, you taste their wines and you have to drive to the next one. And in between you may eat something and some time lapse and your palate memory is maybe not that good. And at the end of the day, you're tired. This gives you opportunity to directly compare and find your favorites. So it's a great experience, and I love it, and that's what we built in the model.
It is an exceptional offering, and that's before you get to the menu, the decor, just the buzz of the place. Stellenbosch is so happening at the moment, and this is very much at the center of it. So if you like your wine and you'd love to try all sorts of different ones, but do so on a very manageable budget, then I think I found exactly the right space. I'd love to keep on chatting, and I'd love to keep on drinking some more wine, but unfortunately, I've got a flight to catch. So thank you. That's been brilliant.
Thank you for visiting.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Apologies, I was a little distracted there by the menu at Embarc. How cool does the wine glass look in Stellenbosch? The original out in Hermanus, and now a space where, gee, you've got a challenge, 130 glasses of wine. You could have all of them different, all those different flights. It's a wonderful challenge to have. I suspect you might need a few visits. And that challenge there at the Glass House is very similar to the one here at Embarc. It's not the biggest menu in the world, but gee, is it tough to decide what to have. And I think that's part of the reason they won the Lux New Restaurant of the Year award in 2021. A couple of highlights on this particular menu: Springbok Carpaccio with a fig and beer reduction. How good does that sound? The scallops I had last time, with a charred pineapple and some chimichurri for a touch of South America. And the other dish I had some beef fillet and short rib with potato air. I'm not even going to try and explain that. Come to Embarc and find out for yourself. That will be part of your education. Part of our education today is the art of wine. And somebody else I caught up with recently is the man who said goodbye to Kleine Zalze and moved over to De Morgenzon, where he's more than finding his feet. Alistair Rimmer has become a good friend of the show, and he showed me some rather special wine. Welcome to the home of reciprocal wines. You've seen us here in the past, principally with a couple of terrific conversations we had with Michael Fridjon, that walking encyclopedia of wine. We don't have Michael today. Instead, we've got somebody who you might recognise from a small, slightly dingy, but quite excellent Portuguese restaurant we spent some time at not that long ago. Alistair Rimmer, lovely to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too, Dan.
Of course, the last time we sat down and had a wonderful meal was with some fantastic Kleine Zalze wine. We now sit down with some De Morgenzon wine. It's a bit like Cristiano Ronaldo going from Juventus to Manchester United, this big money winemaker transfer. Explain a little of how this process works and how difficult, how easy it was to say goodbye to one great brand and hello to another.
Yeah, Dan, it's a very difficult process. Yeah, you put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into your wines. Yeah, any passionate winemaker really invests themselves wholeheartedly into what they're doing. And Kleine Zalze is a wonderful brand with wonderful wines. And it's a long-term project and a long-term commitment. And to to leave was felt like, you know, leaving a wife or a child behind. It was a gut-wrenching sort of decision to make, but at the same time in life, you know, you've got to move on, you develop, and the Morgenzon's a property that I've known for many years. A very good friend of mine that I studied with, Carl van Merwe, was the previous cellar master and GM for a decade. And he and I, you know, I've tasted his wines and watched the evolution of the Morgenzon. And I've always thought the property, the estate that is there is a unique vineyard site within Stellenbosch. And I've always been fascinated by it. And it was an opportunity for me to tackle a new challenge, a new project, and really sort of, you know, help evolve the great work that Carl did and take the Morgenzon to where I think it should be, right up with the best wineries in the country, and with that, some of the top wineries in the world.
So one day you're wandering into your cellar at Kleine Zalze, the next day into a completely different one. At first glance, well, you're just making wine. It can't really be that tough, surely. But I'm sure there are loads of differences. What's been the biggest challenge? What's been most different about the shift to the new space? Yeah,
obviously, Kleine Zalze is quite a diverse winery. You know, they grow a lot of their own fruit, but they're buying fruit from all over the Western Cape. It's different pockets, and they assemble, you know, really world-class wines from all the best pockets they can lay their hands on. So it's many more puzzle pieces. It's putting a broader puzzle picture together, and you're expressing the best that South Africa can do, and in certain cases the best of what Stellenbosch can do, but usually assembled from multiple wards within Stellenbosch events. The Morgenzon is effectively an estate wine. You know, they have in the past purchased little bits of fruit in to supplement some of their production at the DMZ range level, the sort of mid-level tier that they produce. But effectively, all the reserve wines and 95% of the DMZ wines are estate-grown fruit. So you are expressing one little pocket and microcosm of what Stellenbosch is. And with that, there's great reward, because I think you can make unbelievably unique wines, unique expressions of the unique terroir that the Morgenzon is. But it is also less space to hide. So in the difficult vintages, you've just got that little patch. You've only got one or two puzzle pieces to play with. Whereas at a bigger winery, you've got many more puzzle pieces, and you can accommodate shifts in vintage a little bit better. Whereas the Morgenzon is an expression of the site in a particular vintage, which I suppose is the essence of great wine, is that vintage variation and the expression of a site. And that's what's exciting for me. It's really drilling down into expressing the terroir that is the Morgenzon.
All right, so this is a 10-year-old Chenin blanc, which is just fabulous to be able to jump into. It's a really tough part of your new job, I suppose, just having to drink so much of the wine to really get a feel for it, Alistair.
Yeah, every profession's got its hazards, and this is one of mine. Yeah, it's a real privilege. I really believe in Chenin Blanc. I believe in Stellenbosch Chenin Blanc, and the Morgenzon has arguably been one of the, over the last decade at least, and if not a bit longer, but definitely over the last decade, has been one of the most consistent and one of the finest proponents of Stellenbosch Chenin. And ageability of white wines is something that I think in certain circles people understand. South Africans, as a general rule, drink younger white wines and don't look at them older. And I think if we're ever going to go and show and prove to the general wine public what aged white wines can be, I think Chenin is a fantastic highlight. As they get a bit older, they really start expressing that sense of place a bit better. These are grown in granite soils, and you start seeing that minerality, that granite minerality that comes through them, and it just carries these wines. As they age, they get more rich and developed, and that sort of honeysuckle sweetness to them, but they keep this fresh minerality that never lets them get flabby. And I think that's what's great about older Chenin. When it's done well off a great site like this, yeah, you look at these cracking wines 10 years down the line.
Ah, this is a fabulous breakfast. Kick off with the nose. Tell us about that.
Yeah. That's what's cool about this wine. There's quite a a defined nose. It's sort of a bit of that tangerine peel, which is typical of an older wine. But then there's a beautiful purity. There's even a floral freshness to this. Some of that primary quince, which you would have expected to get on the wine when it was younger, is still there. Yeah, and that's quite prominent when it's up front. Yeah, slightly, maybe a little bit of honeysuckle showing its age. But then we head across to the palate, and that's where this wine, I think, really comes alive. Yeah, you've got that beautiful racing acidity. It gives us sort of mouth-watering quality to the wine. And then that sort of honeysuckle quince. The quince comes through a lot on the palate. And then on the back palate, you get that slightly flinty mineral, what we refer to as a mineral stony character that just sits there and persists. And you've got this slightly, slaty feel, and your mouth just sort of is salivating for another glass. The freshness and the balance of this wine, I think it's drinking beautifully well. But, if you had a couple of bottles in your cellar and you drank them over the next 3 or 4 years, I think you'd be equally rewarded by hanging on to them. I don't think this is over the hill by any stretch of the means. I think wines do get to a peak and they sit on a plateau and then they do slowly slide off that hill. I think this is definitely still at its peak. And it'll be interesting to see how much longer this wine could go. That's also with a relatively young property, is we're learning as we go along. How far can these wines go? The climatical conditions in 2011 with the winemaking, how long will these wines age? No one really knows. But looking at the balance and the freshness of this wine, it'll be interesting to see what it does over the next 5 or 6 years. And like you said, we're fortunate. Wendy has got the owner of the Morgenzon's got a vast wine library of a personal collection and for the Morgenzon as our own. So we should be able to look at it over the next decade even. So it's exciting times ahead.
So would this be the oldest Chenin you have?
No, we do have a bit older. The first Chenin produced under Wendy's ownership was the 2005. And I think that was made by Teddy Hall, also another famous name in the world of Chenin. Yeah. And the maiden vintage got 5 stars and platters. So it's got a long, lustrous track record. I brought this one along because it was Carl van der Merwe's first wine that he made there. So it's something I've watched over the years.
There's no pressure on you at all, is there? All these amazing winemakers with their brilliant wine, and you've got to pick up the baton.
Yeah, none at all. Carl's left me the real tough one to keep going. That the Morgenzon Reserve Chenin has had 7 consecutive years in the Standard Bank top 10 Chenins. Mm-hmm. And I daren't be the person that breaks that streak.
That'll be an interesting phone call to Wendy.
Yeah.
All right, it's a cracking example of aged Chenin. I'm imagining this with all sorts of food, and it would just be an absolute delight. It's also fascinating to see how it sits with something that's not newer. And we've got is it the 2019 we have?
We've got the 2020 Divas bottling. So there's quite a special glass of wine next.
All right, well, let's pour some and see how it works. The Divas it is. Straight away you can see the colours so different, and everything about it's so different.
Quite often people are looking for the big expressive styles, especially when it comes to Stellenbosch and the Morgenzon. And this is a bit of a juxtaposition. It's all about the mineral and the texture. And the biggest compliment I've paid this wine in the past, and it's definitely true of the 17. I don't know the 13, but definitely true of the 17 I see it. It's Burgundian in its texture. Obviously Burgundy is Chardonnay, but Burgundy, when it's great, it's got this beautiful minerality and texture. And it's not so much about it speaking loud volumes, but it's about the length and the durability of this wine. And I'm enamored with this wine and this block. And I'm very fortunate to be the custodian of the block going forward, because that's all we are for these great old vines. We're custodians for the next generation of winemakers. And this specific one, we're going to open the clone up. So anyone else that wants to plant this clone in South Africa is more than welcome to come and get material from us. If we can help the industry and help South African wines get out there and be recognized as the great wines that they are, by all means, we'll help the industry where we can.
Good for you.
Cheers.
All right, well, two very different Chenin Blanc stories, which now knit in with your particular story. Do you feel that you've found your feet? Do you feel that you've now settled in, that the Morgenzon is now very much home and you're all good to go?
I'm getting there. It's not quite, it's home, and I felt at home right from the get-go. Wendy's been brilliant in welcoming me and accommodating and helping me find my feet. But I think I'll only really sort of truly be able to call it home once I've got a harvest under the belt. Yeah, that's the real acid test of moving through. We're into the growing season. We're quite busy with the vineyards at the moment, and it's shaping up. Yeah, we've had quite a lot of late rains in spring, so it's been challenging in the vineyards to keep things moving along in the right direction. But yeah, that's what we love. Winemakers, yeah, that's our passion, is harvest time. So once I've got a harvest under the belt, I think I'll be 100% entrenched at the Morgenzon.
All right. Well, we can't give you particular credit for these two wines, but there will be many that we will in the near future. Absolutely. And I look forward to that. Happy settling in. I know RJ is doing his best to keep things going at Kleine Zelse. Well. You've got some great traditions. It's a short history at De Morgenzon, but a proud one. I think you're a wonderful addition to that particular story, and I look forward to seeing your adventure unfold.
Cool. Thanks, Dan.
Some Chenin Blanc highlights then from Alistair Rimmer and De Morgenzon. He's just a really cool winemaker, and I think we're going to see great things from an estate that's already got a pretty fearsome reputation, but under Alistair, even more exciting days to come. You can feel the lunchtime energy. It's a Friday in Parkhurst. People are tumbling out of offices and into assorted restaurants, Embarc being one of them. And if you haven't been here, I would highly recommend a visit. I would also highly recommend a visit to Bartony, and you could do that absolutely free of charge, because our competition that's running until the end of February is a simple one. It's a chance to win a weekend for two people at Bartony in the Bunhook Valley, just outside of Stellenbosch, as well as a case of the 5-star platter Hourglass Chardonnay. And all you need to do, jump onto your favoured social media space, tag Dan Really Likes Wine and Bartony, and if you're the winner by telling us why you want to go on this weekend away, well, that weekend could be yours. Thanks to Lisa and the team at Embarc for all of their hospitality. Get to the wine glass in Stellenbosch if you can. Drink some De Morgenzon when you have the chance. And most importantly, keep supporting South African wine. Cheers.